Hey, lmao! It's your girl, Cadence Harper. Today, we're gonna learn how to play Shogi. Yay! So if you guys see in the top left, I am on lishogi.org, beta. If you're interested in Shogi, I would very strongly recommend that you make an account here. And, you know, there is a little bit of a learn how to play, but more importantly than that, you can play against the AI, you can play against randos, you can play puzzles, all kinds of great things. If you want, you can even send me a challenge right up here, just Cadence Harper. And you know what? You can do it so it's correspondence based, which means basically we take turns back and forth mailing. And if you do that, I will definitely accept. But for now, let's go ahead and start learning how Shogi plays. So first we have the pawn. The pawn can move straight forward. That's literally it. Can't take diagonally, can't take backwards, can't take side to side, just straight on forward. Next we have the rook. The rook can move any number of squares in any cardinal direction, that is to say up, down, or left, right. Cannot move diagonally at all. Next, we have the bishop. Much like the rook, the bishop can move any number of squares. However, the bishop moves diagonally rather than using the cardinal directions, and cannot move in the cardinal directions at all. Next, we have the lance. The lance is a little bit special. It can move only straight forward, however, it can move as far straight forward as it wants. Just like that. Next, we have the knight. The knight is also a little bit special. Unlike regular chess, the knight can only move forward 2 squares and then left or right. However, unlike every other piece in the game, if there are pieces blocking the knight's movement, for example, if there was a piece here and the knight wanted to go here, he would still be able to as the knight jumps over pieces. As long as his final resting square is unoccupied, the knight can move there. Again, straight forward 2 and then left or right 1. Next, we have the silver general. A lot of people are confused with the generals in general, but they're pretty simple once you've played enough games. So, the silver general can move forward in any direction, or back left or back right. It can't move directly left, directly right, or directly down. A good way to remember the silver general specifically is honestly just look at the piece ticks on this website, Shogi. There are a variety of board themes and piece themes. Obviously, I chose the outer space for my board theme, and for the piece theme, I like this one, Kanji Guide Shadowed, because it shows you how the pieces move, which can be a lot of help when you're first starting off. After you've played enough games, you will get the hang of how the pieces move, but for now, I would strongly recommend staying on this piece set. Next, we have the golden general. He can move in any direction he wants except lower left or lower right. He can move straight to the left, straight to the right, straight down, anywhere he wants forward, but he can't move back right or back left. Next, we have the king. The king is the most important piece. He can move in any direction he so chooses. However, he can only move 1 square at a time, which makes him pretty slow. Next, let's take a look at the standard Shogi board. So, each player has 3 rows. The AI just went ahead and took its first move, but each player has 3 rows of pieces. Row of pawns, a single bishop, a single rook, and then from left to right, a lance, knight, silver general, gold general, king, and then repeat. So the 3 rows on the opponent's side are very important. For you, those are called your promotion zones. Let me teach you about promotion. So if you move a piece into, out of, or within the promotion zone, you have the choice of if you want to promote or not. Let's go ahead and not promote so I can show you that moving within the promotion zone also lets you promote. Typically, you're always going to want to promote with a few exceptions. Most pieces become golden generals when they promote, although they're not called golden generals. So in addition to the pawn, the lance also promotes into essentially a golden general. Something important to keep in mind is that when it promotes, it does lose the ability to move forward as many squares as it wants, so sometimes it is worthwhile keeping your lances unpromoted. The silver general also promotes into a gold general. Much like the lance, it is sometimes worth not promoting, as you can't go here or here like you can with a proper silver general. The knight also promotes into a gold general. It does lose the ability to jump, so sometimes it can be worth holding on to your knights, although not often. Next, we have the bishop. It's a little bit special. When it promotes, it becomes what's called a horse. It can make any move a king could make, or any move a bishop could make. It does not lose this power, unlike most other pieces. The rook functions much like the bishop. When it promotes, it becomes a dragon, the best piece in Shogi. It can move in any direction a king could, or any direction a rook could. This makes it very, very efficient, as it can get anywhere on the board rather quickly. There are a few exceptions to the promotion rule. For example, golden generals do not promote at all. Kings also do not promote at all. Now, there are a few other rules we need to go over, but I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of this game first so you guys sort of see how it's done. So he's making a rook side attack now. It's very aggressive. I happen to know this strategy, so I'm going to do the standard block for it, which involves moving your generals. So he saw that and decided to go for this instead. But we're not too worried about that. I want to go ahead and show you how this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that attack and move right on with the rook attack. He chose to move his king. I'm not quite sure why. And now his pawn can take mine. Normally that would be a bad thing, but I'm just trying to show you how this game works. So I took his pawn, he took my pawn. That took quite a while. Alright, so now I'm going to take his bishop with my rook and promote to a dragon. He is threatening with both of his generals, so there we go, he took with silver. Now, if you notice, it's counting the pieces we take, and that's not just for show. In Shogi, you can place taken pieces anywhere you want on the board. If you place them directly into the promotion zone, they won't promote, however. But, as we learned with our rules, as soon as you move them out of, or even deeper into the promotion zone, they will promote, but they don't get promoted right when you place them down. So that is something to keep in mind. Pawns have special rules, unlike every other piece, for placing. You can only place a pawn in a column that doesn't have another pawn already in it. This doesn't count enemy pawns though, so if this pawn were taken, I would be able to place a pawn in this column. So if you don't have a pawn in that column, you can place a pawn. If you do have a pawn in that column, you can't. You also can't place a pawn to force a checkmate, but every other piece is fair game. I actually strongly recommend keeping golden generals in hand specifically to force checkmates, as they're very, very powerful for that. The king is the most important piece due to the rule called checkmate. To win a game of shogi, you need to put your opponent in checkmate while you yourself are not in checkmate. If you get in checkmate, you lose the game. If you get your opponent in checkmate, you win. Pretty simple. Checkmate basically means your king is in check and cannot move out of it with any single move. Check just refers to your king being threatened by a piece. For example, if this star was a rook, it would be able to move straight down and take my king next turn. So my king would be considered in check. I would have to get out of check any way I could. This includes taking the rook with, say, another piece, or just moving the king right out of the way. There are some important rules about check. First of all, say my king was here and the rook was here. I would not be able to move into any of these spaces. You cannot move your king into check. You also can't move other pieces if it would mean your king is in check. For example, if I had a bishop right here, and this was a rook and this was my king, I would not be able to move that bishop because then my king would be in check. So you can use this principle to trap your opponent's pieces. Now, you're probably wondering how to practice. Well, playing against the computer is a great way to practice, especially just messing around for a little bit, going a low-level game and just sort of seeing how the pieces fit together, and if you don't like how the game's going, you can just surrender and try again. It seems a little weird to do that, but it does help knowing how all the pieces together, at least when you're first starting out. Other than that, I would recommend something called sume. Sume is a type of shogi puzzle where you need to get in check every turn or you lose, and obviously the ultimate goal is checkmate. So this is a typical sume board. You're usually going to see far more pieces than you actually need. I would recommend first checking out what you have and seeing maybe what you can do with that. For example, if I put a silver general here, that would put the king in check, but then the king could just move down, so that might not be our best move. Is there any other way we could put the king in check? We could move the rook up here. That would put him in check. I think that's probably our best move. Let's go ahead and see. Nope. Okay, do you like this? Okay, it does like me placing that there. So if I go ahead and move my golden general over, that is checkmate, because he can't move his rook up because the golden general or he can't move his rook down because the golden general is blocking, and he can't move up because the silver general is blocking. He can't take either general because the golden general is protecting the silver general, and the rook is protecting my golden general. Alrighty, with all of that being said, I think we're ready for our first couple of games. Thank you guys oh so much for watching this how to play Shogi tutorial, and if you are a little confused, that's totally natural. It takes quite a while to understand the rules, even with them all being explained. Again, I would recommend just messing around with the computer, seeing what makes sense to you, what doesn't, and sort of getting a bit of a handle on the games. I hope you guys will join me for my next Shogi video where we'll be focusing on your first couple of games. But goodbye for now!